Plotting data over time can reveal patterns and trends, but often blips in the data require further explanation. Now we can help our user by labeling events in our charts to highlight key points in time that might explain those blips or patterns that are revealed in the data. Let's take a look. For example, this chart monitors average running pace per kilometre for the month of December. Now, December is a busy social month, and there were a few, shall we say, occasions, plus an injury that derailed the training routine, the timing of which is indicated by the blue markers. Now, these events help explain the patterns and blips in the data without the user having to ask further questions. So let's take a look at how we build it. On this sheet, I've got the data. Column B and C tracks the date, and you can see it's actually a date. I've just formatted just to show the day, and the average pace. So this is what the user enters. We've also got column E here with the events, and when they enter an event in column E, the formula in column D returns a value for that event, and that value just positions the marker above all of the columns, and we use a formula to determine what that value should be and when to enter it. It's an if formula, and what it says is if the event type cell is not blank, then find the maximum of the average pace and add 5% to it. If the event field is blank, so if this logical test is false, then return the NA error. Now the reason we use the NA error is because NAs don't get plotted in the line chart. If we returned a blank in here or a 0 instead of the NA error, then what we'd have is a load of blue dots along the horizontal axis down here. So what we just want are the dots where the events occurred. And we're just using a placeholder value, and that forces the blue dot to sit up above the columns. The other thing I've done is I've extracted the day letter just with a text function that picks up the date, converts it into text that returns the day, and then I've used the left function just to return the first letter of that date. So if I evaluate this, I get Friday, and then left just returns the F. So I'll press escape. So that's my data for my chart. Let's insert the chart. Now I'm going to start by selecting just the date and the average pace columns. Now my version of Excel doesn't like this layout of the data. What happens is when you format your data in an Excel table, which this is, and you go and insert a chart, Excel tries to determine what type of chart you might want based on the data in the table. And you can see here it's going to give me a load of nonsense. This is my chart, and you can see the range has gone a bit crazy. So let me fix that up. I'm going to right click, select data, and we're just going to edit the ranges. So first of all, we're going to pick up the series name, and the values are these ones here. Now there's lots of ways you could fix this, but I'm just going about it in this way. If you know a different way, that's fine as well. Now my axis labels are both of these columns. Just the data, not the headers. So I'll click OK and OK again, and our chart's looking better. The next thing I need to do is add in the event data, and there's lots of ways to do that as well. Since I've got the chart selected, I can simply grab the pull handles and drag across, and now I have the event information as well. So I need to plot these events as a line chart. So I'm going to select any column and right click, change series chart type. Now in here, I want to change the event to a line chart with markers, and we'll click OK. So there are my markers for the events. Now I need to do a little bit of formatting for this line. So with it selected, I can click Control 1, and that opens my formatting options. And I'll remove the line, so I'm just left with the markers. Now let's make the markers a bit more to our liking. I'm going to go with the built-in dot, and I'm going to make it a bit bigger. We'll make it a size 7, and I'll make it a blue color. This teal color will do. And I need to change the border as well. So they're my markers. Now I need to add, actually before we move on, we'll change the color of these columns. I'm going to go with a gray. and we'll make it a bit wider. We'll do a little bit of formatting while we're here. So one of the things I want to do is make sure that the series both overlap. So the columns are a series and so are the dots. And I want them to overlap so that they're both aligned correctly to the days below, these days down here. So you can see there was an event on this day and there was also some run training done on this day. So they line up. I'm going to reduce my gap width to about 30%. That just makes my columns fatter. I want to add some labels to those columns, but I also want to label my line chart or these markers. And there's a few ways you can do that. You can right click, add data labels, or if you've got Excel 2013 onwards, you can go in here and add data labels. I'm going to go to more options because I don't want the standard labels. And in the label options, I have this choice to add a label that is of value from a cell. If you have Excel 2013 onwards, then you have this option. If you have earlier versions of Excel, then in the materials that you can download with this video, I'll link you to a tutorial that tells you how to achieve it in Excel 2007 or 2010. But if you've got Excel 2013 or 2016 or even Excel 2018, then you can use this value from cells. So I'm going to check that, and a dialog box pops up. And these are my labels in this event type column. So we're going to grab those and click OK. Now my label has the event type and the time. I don't want the value and I don't want any leader lines. And I'm going to pop the label above the marker. So there are our labels. While I'm here, I'm just going to click on the grid lines and press the delete key and get rid of those. I'm also going to label my columns. So I'm careful just to select the columns. You can see that's what's selected based on the data in the table here. And I'm going to add data labels. I want to format them. I want the labels to sit inside the end. And let's make the font white. There's a few places you can format the font. I tend to do it on the Home tab. It's just a habit. Now I think we need to make our column gap width smaller, so let's reduce that down to 10% and see how that looks. I don't want the columns to touch each other. I'll make my chart a bit wider. There we go. So now our times are in the columns. Because the times from one column to the next are quite close together, that information is really important, and this vertical axis isn't going to do it for us. So since I've labeled the columns, I'm just going to delete the vertical axis. I don't need it, it's just adding more noise. I've got the times in here. Now let's add a title to my chart, and we'll add a legend, and I'll put that legend at the top. Now I'm just going to move the legend to the top right and the chart title to the top left, and that gives me more room for my actual chart. Let's give it a chart name. December run training. If you wanted to, you could add some commentary to the chart title as well. And if we look at my original one, you can see I've said went completely off the rails at Christmas. So this just draws your reader's attention to Christmas being one of the key anomalies to draw their attention to. So the key to building a chart that has markers or labels events is primarily in how you structure your source data. We plot the event with its own series, we've used custom labels, and we've nested our axis so that we have the day and then the day label. That gives context to those dates. We can see where the weekends are. And the other thing that I've done here is, because I'm plotting data over time, I've made sure I've included those dates where no running happened, because that's part of the information. Even though there was no training on that day, that's a key piece of information. So when you're plotting data over time, it is important in some cases to actually include those days where there was no data. Well, I hope you found this useful. Please take a moment to click the thumbs up, and don't forget there's a link in the description where you can download the workbook. And if you'd like to be notified when I publish more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.